Hi, college algebra student. This video is for chapter 2.5. The main focus is quadratic equations. So what is a quadratic equation? Quadratic equation is the one with x squared term. So it could have only x squared term. It could have x squared and x terms. And that determine how you solve it. We actually run into this kind of equations in 2.4 when we are looking at solving something that is x squared equal to a negative number. So maybe I'll go over that a little bit. Remember, if we solve something x squared equal to a negative number, it turns out that the answer is a complex number or imaginary number. So this I squared equal to negative 1 is the result of solving x squared equal to a negative number. And at the end of the 2.4 video, I did not finish this I to the 29. So we know I squared is equal to negative 1. So I is equal to square root of negative 1. But if that is the definition of I, then how can I use this number is an imaginary number and exponent it to 29 times. And I say, well, we know this cycle because I squared equal to negative 1. If I multiply I squared by itself, I have I to the 4th equal to 1. So anytime I do an exponent, if I split up all the I to the 4 out, it would be 1 times something. So I29 would be 7 times of I4 because 4 times 7 is 28, right? So it would be equal to I of 28 times I. So equal to I of 28 times I. And each one of them is I to the 4, which is 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. So this would equal to 1 times I. So 1 times I would equal to I. So I to the 29 is equal to I. So the idea is you split all these I to the 4 out and it become 1. So let's return back to 2.5. If I have an equation that has an x squared term and some other term, so how do I solve it? It turns out there's so many methods to solve it, and then it depends on the situation. I'm sure you heard about quadratic formula that can be used to solve quadratic equation. But that is the very difficult methods. Before that, you should not go directly into quadratic formula. You should go this easier path first. So there's 3 methods before you try quadratic formula. The first method is factoring. The second method is take square root if the equation is of a particular form. The third method is completing the square. So these are easier method than quadratic formula. And of course, if all else fails, or these 3 methods fails, you use quadratic formula. So let's go through this one by one. Now I'm going through this a little quicker because I assume that you have learned this in Algebra 1 or Math 120. Okay. If you need more help on this, you can ask me and I'll send you more videos. First, solve by factoring. So to factor a quadratic equation is to move everything to one side, the other side equal to 0 before you factor. So don't factor only 2 things and leave the other constant term on the other side. You have to move everything to one side. You could have 1 term, you could have 2 term, you could have 3 term, but if you are doing factoring, they have to be all in one side because this is the requirement to do zero product property. The reason why you want to use factoring is you want to use zero product properties. So if your x squared is just x squared without any leading coefficient, or the leading coefficient is 1, then you use diamond. If you have a non-1 leading coefficient, you use grouping. Okay, so I have 2 examples here. For college algebra, you need to get yourself familiarized with how to grouping. I'm sure you can do the diamond method to factor x squared something. So to do this, we say, let me get the pen first. You look at, oh, this is x squared, so I can use diamond. For diamond, you write down C. So this is C and this is B. Negative 6 is B. So you copy C here and you say, I need to find two numbers. When I multiply is equal to C, but when it add is equal to B. Okay. So, in our case, my C is 5 and my B is negative 6. So what two number when you multiply them is 5. When you add them is negative 6. Of course, it's negative 1 and negative 5, right? So this is called the diamond method. So you can factor it as x minus 1, x minus 5 equal to 0. So for factoring, this is done. But if I am to solve means I want to find x equal, then I can use zero product property. That means I split them into two. X minus 1 equal to 0. Because if I have two things multiply equal to 0, any one of them could be 0, right? 0 multiply anything equal to 0. So x is equal to 1 plus 1 on both sides, x equal to 5. So I have two answers, x equal to 1 or x equal to 5. What about if I have 2x squared plus 7x minus 4? Now, I cannot use just diamond. I cannot just look at this this one. I will use the diamond method to add 4 terms. I use grouping. So I will think of still using a diamond, but this would be AC. Multiply, add. And I use it for grouping. So AC means 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. So remember, this is AC. We call it AC diamond and grouping. So when you have this is a non-zero, you use AC diamond and grouping. So there's two steps. Okay, it's harder. Another method to do is to do guess and check. If you want to, it's okay. So what two number when you multiply is negative 8. When you add them is 7. So we would be 8 and 1. And to add it to plus 7, I would have plus 8 and minus 1, right? So now this is not to use as a factor, but it's used for grouping. So I would have 2x squared plus 8x minus an x minus 1x. That means minus 1x. We will just do 1x and minus 4. So see how I have 4 terms? If I have 4 terms, I can group. So the common factor of 2x squared and 8x is 2x. X plus 4. The common factor of negative 1x and negative 4 is minus 1. X plus 4 also, right? So obviously x plus 4 is the common factor. So 2x minus 1 times x plus 4 is the factor. Okay, so AC diamond and grouping. The two number is used to split the 7x into two x's. Now I have to split 2x minus 1 equal to 0. So that means x is equal to 1/2. X minus 4 equal to 0. X equal to 4. So I solve two answers. The second method is taking square root b. So when do you use it? You use it if you have two terms, meaning you have only the x squared term. Okay. One x squared term, no x term. So you use it when you have no x term. You see, I only have x squared. Or you have some kind of x term, but you have a group of a square. You have a group. This is a square group, but I don't have any other linear group. So in either of these two cases, you would use just square root. So no factoring. So you would just, because this is a square group, you isolate it on one side. So meaning you would say 2x squared equal to 40. You want to isolate the square term because eventually you want to take square root. So you only allow a square terms over here. This is still not cleaned up yet. So divided by 2, divided by 2. So you will have x squared equal to 20. Now you have a completely square term with nothing add or subtract or multiply to it. You're gonna solve for x by taking square root. So to do that, you would do square root on this side and square root on this side, but this would be a plus and minus. So remember to do a plus and minus on the constant side. Okay, so become x equal to plus and minus square root of 20. So that is x. That means, and then I simplify. 20 is 4 times 5, right? Square root of 4 times 5. That means plus and minus of 2 root 5. So I have two answers. If you want to write it clearly, is x equal to 2 root 5, x is equal to negative 2 root 5. So again, clean up everything that is next to the square term, and then take square root plus and minus, and that's it. If you have a square group, the same thing, you want to isolate the square group on this side. Anything that is not in the square group goes. Don't multiply this inside or out, okay? And then I don't have anything multiply, so I'm ready to do square roots. Again, you do square root, but the constant sign you have to do plus and minus. So I'm done, right? This and this cancel. X plus 2 would equal to plus and minus square root 3. But I'm not done yet because I want x equal. See, I want x equal like what we have earlier. This is x plus 2 equal. So I need to do minus 2, minus 2. So x would equal to negative 2 plus root 3, negative 2 minus root 3. Two answers. So that is the answer for solving quadratic. So these are the two easiest ones. Basically, if you see only an x squared term, you use square root method. If you see a 3 term, you would try to factor. And it depends on if you have 1x squared or something x squared. Okay, so the third method is by completing the square. It's not super important because sometimes people, when they cannot do the first two, they jump directly to quadratic formula. But this is actually a very a fast method to do a solve equation. So I want to introduce it to you before we do quadratic formula. So we'll do it in the next video, okay, in the 2.5 part 2.